National Guard Combat Field Studies Digital Edition. I'm Sergeant First Class Aaron Heft, and today we're here with historian Joseph Seymour, the Army National Guard historian at the U.S. Army Center for Military History, Fort McNair. And we'll be talking about the 42nd Division in World War I and their actions at Croix Rouge Farm. Mr. Seymour, for those who've not met you before, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes. I spent 10 years in the Pennsylvania National Guard, where I was an armored crewman tanker. I've also been at the U.S. Army Center of Military History for 16 years, both as a contractor and as a government official on the general schedule. I specialize in Army National Guard lineage and honors. For about the past 5 or 6 years, I've also shifted my focus to doing focused battlefield studies, staff rides.
That's quite a background. Sounds like you've got some experience in the history field. So we're going to talk about the 42nd Division today. Can you tell us what makes them so unique in World War I?
42nd Division, the famed Rainbow Division, is one of the storied divisions of the U.S. Army. And while we don't do a lot of firsts, lasts, and greatest, the 42nd Division really is special because it represented 26 states. 26 states contributed elements of their National Guard to comprise the 42nd Division in 1917. There are various stories as to how it got its name, the Rainbow Division. One of the stories is that the various hues in all of the different state and regimental flags looked like the shades of a rainbow. Another story is that in order to create this division, it would have to stretch from one end of the rainbow to the other. But the 42nd is a great division too. It spent a lot of time in France, saw a lot of combat, and some of its units, such as the Fighting 69th, the 4th Alabama, as well as the 4th Ohio and the 3rd Iowa, were units which in and of themselves had a great history.
That's a pretty diverse background for one unit coming all across the country like that. Can you tell us how they got together and what they did to prepare for combat?
Yeah, of course, we declare war April 6th, 1917, after the Germans bring in unrestricted U-boat warfare, also as a result of the Zimmerman telegram. And the Army calls the National Guard into federal service, and then in August 5th, drafts the National Guard into service and orders various elements belonging to the states to concentrate at training camps. The 42nd Division organizes and begins to train at Camp Mills, New York. Various elements travel by rail to the training camp, and there's a bit of friction at first, as you have Southern units such as the 4th Alabama, which with its own proud history, meets the 69th Infantry New York National Guard, and they see the Harp and the Antietam and Gettysburg battle credits and say, oh yeah, okay. But for the most part, apart from usual soldierly disputes and bragging rights, the division comes together under General Manoir, and they ship for France. They're one of the earliest divisions to arrive, and there's a bit of a schism. There are references to National Guardsmen being tin soldiers or strike breakers. Are they going to really face the rigors of combat? So the National Guardsmen within the division want to prove themselves. When they get to France, they go through the projected training cycle of the division. Now, not all National Guard divisions, not all National Army divisions have the option of going through this training cycle, but the 42nd Division does. They go from training with English advisors, British advisors, then they go to training with French advisors, then they're sent to a series of quiet sectors where they learn the rudiments of trench warfare. They're sent first to the Baccarat sector, then to the Lunéville sector, which the soldiers call Looneyville. And it's there that they get into the tempo of fighting in a trench, although it's a quiet tempo, so they have time to make mistakes and learn without it being fatal. This also gives higher level officers, staff officers, as well as the field artillery, time to go to schools and become well trained. There's a great desire on the part of the French to make sure that these divisions are going to be successful in combat. And that is after the U.S. did not agree to have Americans fight as individual replacements. So they are in the Lunéville sector in the late spring of 1918 when the Germans launch their great offensives. And it's from there that they shift to Champagne during the German Operation Reims, which is an attempt to envelop and capture the city of Reims, which is where our story really takes off. They had successfully defended with the French Fourth Army less than a week before the assault on Croix Rouge Farm. They were tired, they had suffered casualties as a result of that action. Then they board trucks and they travel miles around the salient where they come in to the relief of the 26th Division, the Yankee Division, which was comprised mostly of New England troops. They're also encountering reserve elements of the 28th Division, the elements of the 56th Brigade, the 111th and 112th Infantry, as they enter the Forêt de Fer. The goal, the objective of General Hunter Liggett, the Corps commander, is to actually assault up to the Vale River. The city of Fer-en-Tardenois is being contested at this point. There are a line of hills to the east of Fer-en-Tardenois that the Army considers vital targets. The 26th Division had also been in combat for a long time and was really worn out at this point. They had suffered high casualties. They had fought in the Chemin des Dames. They were really worn out, and the 56th Brigade had been leapfrogging all the way up about 20 kilometers from Chateau Thierry. So now it was the 42nd's turn. Their objective, as I said, was to advance along a line up to the Ourcq River, which was Fer-en-Tardenois, and they were placed in line in the Forêt de Fer. Now, their first big objective was going to be a fortified farm. The Germans had very successfully fortified various farmsteads. Now, these were stone farmsteads walled in and basically in a box pattern. They were natural forts. And what the Germans had done was they had basically mounted a weakened machine gun battalion. About 27 camouflage machine guns were emplaced at Croix Rouge Farm. There were heavy barbed wire entanglements. They had cleared fields of fire into the nearby woods, which were to the west and south, and marked the trees with white paint about waist high, creating target reference points. About a kilometer behind Croix Rouge Farm was a German ammo dump. So their lines of resupply were very close and readily available. They also had access to indirect fire to support this. So this was a very strong German position, very typical of the battlefield in Champagne. The Germans were going to slow the Allied advance with a series of these fortified machine gun positions. They were going to prove to be very tricky, very costly targets to try to take out. Now, as I said, the 42nd Division arrives by truck in line. Their main supply route is a single road from Chateau Thierry. That is also the main supply road for French divisions and for the 26th to 28th Division. So every division that's moving into line is using this road. So traffic jams are frequent, there's congestion is high. Also, as a side note, the Allies did not have air superiority over the battlefield over the Marne and Champagne. So the Germans had committed 2/3 of their combat air power, including the famed Flying Circus, which was Baron von Richthofen's former unit. He had been killed already, but it was in the command of a young First Lieutenant Hermann Göring, who would later achieve fame or infamy, as it was. So these were very good pilots, and it was not uncommon for advancing Americans and advancing French troops to be strafed. So Croix Rouge Farm is not going to be an easy objective for the 42nd. This is all to underscore the fact that the 42nd had no sooner arrived in position than they get orders to assault positions across into Croix Rouge Farm. Now they are situated behind a wood line, and as they are assembling, the Germans, which have very good aerial reconnaissance and very good battlefield preparation, they call in an artillery barrage. This makes things very difficult for the 42nd. Their supply line, as I said, is difficult. The 117th Ammunition Train, which is responsible for providing them with ammunition, cannot or will not move ammunition up. So machine gun ammunition, grenades, and 37 millimeter ammunition is in short supply. To make things worse, it's raining. As they're mounting their assault, a light rain begins to turn to a steady rain as they're beginning their assault. This makes visibility very, very poor. So they received their order at about 1540. The Germans promptly begin a barrage. As they begin their assault, their step-off time is 1650 hours. There's a battalion of the 167th Infantry, the Alabama boys, and the 168th Infantry, Iowa soldiers. Each one of these, there's a lead company. In the case of the 167th, Company D, under the command of John Powell. They move up, and as they move out of the tree line, they immediately come under the interlocking fields of fire of 27 machine guns. As they move out, Captain Powell is killed instantly, shot through the head. Then Captain Julian Strasburger, who's the machine gun company commander, he moves in, assesses the situation, realizes that he's got to reposition his machine guns for support fire, but as he is doing so, he is shot through the head. Lieutenant Wren of the machine gun company is able to move up and mount a 37 millimeter gun, but basically as the infantry companies have moved out into the open, the rain has started to get harder. They're in a plowed field. It's muddy, it's wet, the soil is chalky and heavy. It's basically forming like a concrete around them, and soldiers are getting shot down, and there's very little command and control for about an hour as they're taking casualties. They're trying to seek cover. At this point, the attack is really starting to fall apart, and we're really only at about just before 1800 hours. Various officers and NCOs step up, they take the position. Now, they understand if they fall back into the tree line, the Germans have that registered with artillery. The Germans have their own position registered with artillery. If they go back into the tree line, the elements of the 111th, 112th, and 101st Infantry are already back there, so they can't actually occupy that space. On their left flank is a depleted French regiment, the 409th Regiment, that is also trying to support this attack. So they cannot try to outflank the position, or else they're going to run into Allied French soldiers who, in the poor visibility, will very likely commit fratricide on them. This is also something that you cannot do in World War I semi-linear warfare. You just simply cannot move out and flank. You've got a very limited sector that you must maintain. So the question that I put to soldiers and to an infantryman is, you're pinned down, you're under direct fire, you can't move back, what do you do? These soldiers had no choice. The only sensible solution was to push forward. Now, as infantrymen, they had one option in their favor, the bayonet. Two companies are quickly organized from the survivors under Lieutenants Bell and Espy, both of the 167th. They take provisional companies, put together companies of the survivors. They assault from the west and from the north. Assaulting it from the west is a direct frontal assault. From the north is a flanking assault. So now the German machine gunners have to divide their fire between two assaulting columns who are assaulting over about 400 yards of space. The two attacks are fairly successful. Using the bayonet, using hand-to-hand combat, they are able to overwhelm and defeat the 27 machine gun positions, which have no other choice but to displace or avoid capture. They are actually captured, and by about 2,000 hours, the position is silenced. That means that the attack went off. The attack goes off at 1650, so in a little under 4 hours, this far has been silenced, and the line of the 84th Brigade is able to move up. The 83rd Brigade, which is in reserve, is able to take up their position slightly to the north of the 84th Brigade. Just to add, this was not without high cost. The 84th Brigade took almost 1,000 casualties in 4 hours. Just by way of comparison, during this campaign, which was going to last another week, the division took a little over 5,000 casualties. So 1 in 5 soldiers killed in this campaign from the 42nd was killed in these 4 hours. The 42nd Division took a little over 12,000 casualties during the war. So 1 in 12 soldiers is a casualty at Croix Rouge Farm. Now, after Croix Rouge Farm, the 42nd still has the objective. They've basically taken over the 26th Division's sector, and they still have the objective of driving to the Ork River and pushing the Germans in a line back. Now, one thing that the French and the British have learned in almost 4 years of combat is that you do not fail to consolidate any gains you make in this war. previous combat in World War I was characterized by a breakthrough that was then never properly exploited. General Foch, the Supreme Allied Commander, and General Pétain, the ranking French general, were painfully aware of what needed to be done. And regardless of high casualties, regardless of losses, the Germans had to be pushed back. So their first objective was the Ourcq River, which was commanded by a line of hills anchored around the towns of Fère-en-Tardenois. To do this, they were first forced to overcome various fortified farms and German positions, but they were able to do this between the 31st of July and the 1st of August when they're finally taken out of the line. The 42nd would go on. They would take their objective on the Ourcq River, and later during the Meuse-Argonne offensive, they would be called in again, and they would take the Côte de Châtillon, yet another fortified farm. And they would continue to push north all the way to the armistice. So this was a division that would see a lot of combat, a lot of fighting, and would take a lot of ground in its time in France.
So they're one of the first divisions over. You know, they cut their teeth on the Marne, they fight across the Ourcq River and all the way to the end on November 11th. That's a pretty incredible story. I mean, it's really unique in the Guard too. So if I'm a soldier in the 42nd or any National Guard division really, and I want to know more about my unit's history, where can I go to find more out? Is there a place that has all these resources?
Yes, CMH does support military training and Army staff rides. For those who are interested, we do try to maintain a lot of backing material. Here actually is a great way if you want to read up on fighting at the Marne, the fighting that I just described. We maintain campaign pamphlets that are very portable, so they're good things to have in your cargo pocket. If you visit us at history.army.mil, you can see about a lot of the services that CMH provides. You're interested in the history of your current unit, you can look through the lineages that we have or contact us directly. We also are working to open the Army Museum quite soon.
So you've mentioned your involvement in a staff ride program. Can you tell us about these trips you take to France and what they're like?
Oh, of course, yes. Well, we support the National Guard Training Division in providing staff rides to France. It's a great way for soldiers to connect with their history. Virtually every single National Guard division that fought in World War I is perpetuated in some way in today's National Guard. And it is a great way for us to take soldiers to the actual battlefields where they fought. And when we do, we will take you there. We can walk you through these battles. We can take you through each step in the Battle of Croix Rouge Farm, the Battle for Fiume, the Meuse-Argonne. Depending on where your division, where your battalion was, we can take you to that spot, walk you over the ground, and give you a lot of training that you can take away and apply to your current military education. We strongly value military education. This is really part of our chartered mission.
You know, I'm a bit partial to the program. Back in 2019, I was there with CMH at Croix Rouge Farm. You know, I stood there on that ground, saw what was left of the buildings and the bunkers and the positions, and you know, heard those stories from the historians of what the 42nd Division went through right there where it occurred. You know, it was an incredibly inspiring experience. Well, thank you, Mr. Seymour. Thanks again for coming out. Is there anything else you want to add before we go today?
No, just thank you for this program, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to get the word out to our soldiers.
Thanks again. And if you're interested in learning more about Army National Guard history or leader development within the Army National Guard, keep following us here on Leaders Recon on Facebook, or check out our Instagram page at ARNG_leader_development. We'll be featuring periodically history of different National Guard units, leader development opportunities across the force, and different programs that we offer out of the National Guard Bureau. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.